name is Travis Jones. I'm one of the application experts here at MLC CAD Systems. And my goal today is to chat with you guys about different tips and tricks and solutions when you find yourself working from home, specifically as it relates to SOLIDWORKS. Now, a little bit about me. I've been with MLC since 2014. I was a customer prior to coming on board. So I'd worked with SOLIDWORKS for quite a few years before that. And initially I started out of our Austin, Texas office, but here over the past year and a half, I've actually been working out of the Dallas office. And Dallas was actually one of the first cities to kind of go under lockdown during the whole pandemic. And so I want to really share with you guys kind of what I found initially when I started working at home and some of the challenges that I faced. And I think that a lot of you guys have faced as well, and explore what solutions are available when you find yourself working at home. Now, initially, I think a lot of us found that, we thought this would just pass. We thought it would be a couple weeks, we'd be back to business as usual, back in the office, shaking hands with our customers, but that wasn't necessarily the case. And a survey performed by Gartner Incorporated found that 88% of businesses all over the world mandated or encouraged all their employees to work from home. And I think in one way or another, we've all been impacted, whether we've worked from home, maybe it's our customers working from home. We've really had to change kind of the workflow and the way that we go about our day-to-day business. And that may not necessarily go completely back to normal, although it would be nice if we get there as quick as we can. But that same survey found that a lot of the company leaders had planned to allow employees to continue working from home at least part of the time. So while we may kind of get back to business as usual, or some of us already have, it may not be to the same capacity that we were used to a couple of years ago. So we can see that these changes may be here to stay. Now, when we talk about working from home, I think we all kind of have this utopian idea of what it's going to be like when we're working from home. There's going to be no commute, it's peace and quiet, I can go grab snacks from the fridge whenever I want, this is going to be awesome. And there are a lot of benefits to working from home, but there are also a lot of challenges. And so I want to talk about some of the challenges that I've faced, that my coworkers have faced, that our customers have faced, and explore some of the different solutions that are available. There's really going to be four key areas that I want to look at. I want to look at licensing and how to access your SOLIDWORKS licenses when you're working remotely. I want to look at hardware and what you need in place to be able to work from home effectively. We'll look at data and collaboration. And then I want to talk a little bit about just being disciplined when working from home. So to start, let's talk about licensing. Now, depending on the licenses that you currently have with your organization, you're going to have a couple different ways that you can access those SOLIDWORKS licenses. The first is going to be a standalone license. Now, if you have a standalone license and you're just using a laptop and you just bring your laptop home with you, then there's nothing that you're really going to have to do. But for a lot of companies, they may have desktops, they may have their employees basically get their own machines for the house. So one of the big options that I want to explore first is with standalone licensing, how you can actually access your SOLIDWORKS license from any machine. The first option that you've got available to you is to transfer that license. So built right into the software, if you go up to the help drop down, you have the ability to deactivate and activate your license, and you can basically toggle that back and forth to move between different machines really quickly. Another option is the ability to use online licensing, which was introduced a couple years ago. Online licensing basically removes the requirement to go in and transfer the license, and instead what you do is you just sign into SOLIDWORKS with an internet connection from any computer, and your license will just automatically transfer between the machines. So both of these options are really, really flexible. If you have an existing standalone license, you can go ahead and perform either of these. There's no additional cost. And we actually have videos on both of these processes up on our YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and just type in MLC CAD Systems, we have a ton of different videos, but you can search for online licensing or transferring licenses, and we've got videos and how-tos on both of those topics. If you're working for maybe a larger company, oftentimes you'll find that you have a network license. And a network license is going to work a little bit differently. Basically, you have a group of users that actually share licenses, kind of have a license pool that everybody pulls from. And so you can't necessarily just transfer all of those licenses over to your home PC. So with a network license, you've got a couple of options. One is that you can borrow a license. And this is probably going to work well if maybe you're splitting time between home and office. And what it allows you to do is basically borrow a license for up to 30 days and you can leave your network. So if you're not going to come into the office for another month, what you can do is just borrow a license and then you can leave the network, go home, work with that license away from the network as long as you want. Well, at least up to 30 days, and then that license gets returned into the license pool. An additional option, if you want to keep kind of the normal functionality of your network license where your machine basically checks out a license when you open up SolidWorks and then it returns it when you close SolidWorks, is that you could establish a VPN connection to your company's network. Now this requires that you kind of go through and have IT approve this and work with you to set it up. But a VPN stands for a virtual private network. And what it essentially does is it connects your home network with your company network. So it's almost like you're on the same exact network, and it actually allows for your network license to operate just like it would if you were on site at your office. So a lot of different options for licensing that already exist. They're likely not going to be any additional cost, and it's a good idea to go ahead and get these in place. Work with IT, work with MLC CAD systems. We'll be happy to help you guys find the functionality that best suits your scenario. So for licensing, we've got flexible options for any license type. Now, finding a way to get your license is just part of the equation. I mean, the other part of that is you've got to have a computer to run that license on. So I want to look at options for hardware. When you're working at home, it's important to make sure that you have the right tools. You need the right tools in order to be efficient, and the first thing that you really need is the correct PC. So if you're currently at your office working on a desktop workstation, maybe you've got just a really powerful workstation at your office, you run a lot of simulation on it, and it's just a really beefy machine. It may not be practical to just stop working with that computer. You still need that desktop workstation to get your task complete. So a couple of different options here, aside from just bringing that PC home to your house, would be remote access. So we use this occasionally here at our office where we've got a handful of really powerful PCs scattered throughout our offices, and if I need to crunch a simulation, let it run for several days or maybe just overnight if we're being more realistic, then what I can do is I can actually remote into that computer from my house or from another office. There's a lot of tools that are available for this. Built into Windows, you have remote desktop, so you can actually remote into another PC as long as you're on the same network. Or you can use other tools. Even Google Chrome has a remote access tool built into it. So if you've got a desktop that you can't necessarily move around, you're not going to be on site sitting right next to it, and you want to be able to work on SolidWorks or simulation or another tool remotely, then look at different options, work with IT to find a way that you can remotely access that machine from your house. An option that might be a little more practical and probably a bit more common is a laptop. Now, if you haven't been running SolidWorks on a laptop, maybe you started using SolidWorks 20 years ago and laptops just wouldn't cut it. That's all changed. Laptops today are incredibly powerful. At MLC, we pretty much all use laptops just for their portability, but also their power. They're certainly more than adequate for getting the job done. Now, if you've got a laptop already, then you're probably set, but if you don't, then that's something to start looking at. Make sure that if you're looking to pick out a laptop that you're going with something that has a supported graphics card. There's a lot of info out there on the SolidWorks website, on our YouTube page. We even got a document that we can link down in the comment section below that talks about some of the hardware requirements and where your money is best spent. But the biggest thing that I usually tell people is look for a supported graphics card to really get the most out of SolidWorks. Now, right now, the current environment just means that PCs can be pretty expensive, especially graphics card. Trying to find something that's available and at a reasonable price can be a little bit difficult, but there are still a lot of deals to be found. Just a couple to name a few. If you've ever checked out the Dell Outlet, they have a lot of good deals on their Precision line of laptops. We've had a lot of good experience with the Dell Precisions. So you might check out the Outlet. They've got refurbs. They've got PCs that are just a little bit older. I'm sure you guys have seen how a computer can be not necessarily outdated, but there's a new model that comes out every couple of months, and so you'll oftentimes find deals on some of the older models. So if you're looking for a new machine, I would recommend a laptop. The power and portability is all there, and it really gives you a lot of flexibility to kind of work remotely or move between different offices at a moment's notice. Having the right computer is definitely important, but there are other pieces of hardware that can be very critical as well. One that I found to be extremely beneficial is just having a nice external hard drive. Maybe just a 1 terabyte or 3 terabyte external hard drive, plugs in with a USB connection, and you can basically bring that thing anywhere. You can store a ton of data on it. If you're moving between different PCs, it's perfect. It's great for backing up your PCs as well. And that's kind of one thing to consider when you're going to be working at home is you're not necessarily going to have somebody from your IT department, just right down the hall. So being a little bit more self-sufficient can often go a long ways. So I like to have an external hard drive to back up all of my data, have a backup of my computer for a worst case scenario. But it's really important to go ahead and get one of those. They're super cheap, and they can really be a lifesaver when you need them. Something that may not be as critical, but I've still found it to be incredibly useful is wireless devices. So I actually have 2 different work PCs. I've got several PCs at home, and I'm actually doing this presentation from my house right now, and I'm sitting at a desk that actually has 3 laptops around it and a desktop tower. So you can imagine that I don't really have room for, several different keyboards, several mice. So what I found to be really, really useful if I'm working with multiple PCs is to have a wireless mouse that can actually connect to multiple computers. And what you'll find is that a lot of the Bluetooth devices actually have, say, like 3 or 4 different connections that they can hold at any one time. So I've got a button on the bottom of my mouse, and all I have to do is click that button, and it will switch from one device to another. So I don't have to have a bunch of different mice that I carry around. I just keep one at the office, one at home, and I can just switch my connection at a moment's notice. Same thing with a wireless keyboard. I can actually switch with just a couple clicks between my different PCs. And so I've just found that to be really, really useful. Same thing with a wireless headset. I hate having to basically plug in a whole bunch of cables every time I'm moving between the office and the house. And so that's just kind of something to keep in mind if you're looking for a little bit more flexibility and really minimizing the number of devices you have to keep track of. All right, so for hardware, use what you have. If you've got something that basically does the job and it's working for you, you don't necessarily have to go out and spend the money. But if there's something that you're really missing that's a key piece, don't let the absence of that device slow you down. I think we were all kind of guilty of thinking that that work from home scenario might not last for a long time. And so we kind of put off making some of those initial purchases, and you oftentimes kind of wind up regretting not making that purchase sooner. So don't let the lack of something slow you down. Go ahead, try to source that item, get with your IT department, and get what you need. All right, so the next topic I want to look at is data and collaboration. This is going to kind of be split up into 2 sections because it's a really important aspect, and I think it's probably one of the biggest hurdles that companies are facing currently with a bunch of employees working remotely. So data access. Companies today, we're all about data. We have a ton of data. Everyone needs to access it, and they need to access it now. So the first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to SOLIDWORKS is SOLIDWORKS PDM. A lot of you are familiar with SOLIDWORKS PDM. If you're not, SOLIDWORKS PDM is basically a data management tool that was really designed around SOLIDWORKS. It's designed to manage SOLIDWORKS data. It will really manage any data you want it to, but it's designed to manage SOLIDWORKS data, and it does it really, really well. It lets you rename and move files and collaborate on your designs, all in kind of one interface where everybody has visibility to the data and kind of the actions that are taking place. The cool thing about SOLIDWORKS PDM is that you can access it through VPN, so you can actually set up a VPN connection like we talked about earlier, and even if all that data is stored at your office, you can still access it from your house as long as you've got a decent VPN connection. We like to see under 100 milliseconds of latency. That may not mean much to you, but if your IT department's looking to set up that VPN connection, just make sure that you've got 100 milliseconds or better. Another option, if you're not necessarily going to be working from home all the time, maybe it's just a day or two, is PDM has offline mode. And offline mode basically allows you to specify the files that you're going to need to work with, and you can travel away from your PDM server and the network that it's on for an extended period of time. You can get all your work done, and then when you come back to your network, you can basically just upload all of those changes to your PDM server, and then everyone else in your organization will be able to see all of the changes that you made. So really good options there with SOLIDWORKS PDM. Another good option that we've been seeing a lot of is MLC actually offers a hosted server solution for PDM. So if you're saying, yeah, we'd like to have PDM, but right now, nobody's at the office, we don't want to have to manage a physical server, we'll actually do that for you. We've got a data center, we'll spin up a server, we'll manage it, we'll keep track of it, we'll be your PDM admin to make sure that everything's running just as smoothly as possible, and then we'll actually even set up the VPN connection for you so that you've got remote access to it from anywhere. So keep that in mind if you're looking for a remote access solution. We'd love to help you guys find that solution with our hosted server. Stepping away from kind of the SolidWorks set of solutions, one common solution is if your company has a network drive that you typically work off of, you can still access that network drive if you're connected over VPN. So you'll see that VPNs have really kind of become a mainstay with this work from home scenario. And if you're looking for something really simple and straightforward, you can basically connect to your existing network drive with a VPN as soon as IT helps you get that set up. And then another solution that you guys have seen a lot as well, but one I'd like to kind of walk through with you is a cloud-based solution. So if you don't want to have to set up a VPN connection, if you'd rather just go to a web browser and access your data right through the internet, then what you can do is you can look at many of the different cloud solutions that are out there. So some really common ones that you probably see would be like OneDrive, Sharepoint, Dropbox. These are basically cloud storage solutions where you can store data and it's visible across your organization to anyone that has access to this storage solution. Something that SolidWorks and Dassault Systems have recently introduced is the 3D Experience platform. You've probably heard a little bit about it, and we do have several different videos up on YouTube, and we love to chat with you guys about the 3D Experience. But it is basically a cloud solution that revolves around all things SolidWorks. So if you're looking to manage tasks and projects, if you want to share files, if you want to collaborate and talk about designs, 3D Experience offers just an incredible array of tool sets to allow you guys to design and work inside of the cloud. I wish I just had a ton of time to kind of go through all the different options that are in the 3D Experience, but if you haven't had the time to check it out, we'd love to chat with you guys and kind of do a deep dive on what is available in that platform. So that's a little bit about data access, which is really just focused on gaining access to your files, being able to work with them, but that's really only part of the solution. Not only do we need access to our files, but we need to collaborate on those files with our team, with our organization, with our coworkers. There are good ways to communicate, and there are not so good ways to communicate. Email works great until that's your only method of communication, and when you're trying to run an entire business through email, it just gets really, really difficult to track everything. Everybody's sending out emails. You've just got a flooded inbox. It's hard to keep track of timelines and what's going on. And if you're like me, you kind of turn into this guy where you're like, gosh, are we still sending all these emails? There's got to be a better way for us to all jump in and communicate with better visibility to what's actually going on. So with that being said, first thing I want to talk about is SolidWorks Manage. We talked about SolidWorks PDM earlier, and PDM is really focused on managing the physical files that your company generates, whether they're SolidWorks files, Office documents, any file extension PDM can basically store and it can manage. But SolidWorks Manage kind of sits on top of SolidWorks PDM, and it offers additional functionality for managing things like projects, tasks, timelines. So if you've got a big project that the whole team's working on and you need to know who's currently working on what, how far along are we with our task completion, are we hitting our deadlines. Um, Basically, SOLIDWORKS Manage offers a solution to all of this. It can be accessed remotely, just like with SOLIDWORKS PDM, and it really gives you a ton of functionality for managing all of the critical timelines and milestones and everything involved with completing out some of these heavier workloads. 3D Experience also offers a really diverse suite of tools. We kind of talked about just how many tools there are, whether you're in management, marketing, design, engineering, manufacturing. The 3D Experience offers a ton of cloud-based solutions, and it has direct SOLIDWORKS integration. So it really just kind of comes down to the exact tool set that you're looking for. You may even use a combination of these different tool sets, but between SOLIDWORKS Manage and the 3D Experience, both of these SOLIDWORKS tools offer incredible methods of collaboration from anywhere for everybody in your organization. Outside of the SOLIDWORKS toolset, we have other tools that are available to us like Teams, Zoom, Slack. We've all gotten really familiar with a lot of these. I'm going to talk about one in particular that we found to be pretty useful at MLC CAD Systems, and that's going to be the combination of Teams, Sharepoint, and Office 365. Kind of Microsoft's whole suite of tools is what we use a lot on the back end of our organization. Teams is great. It offers a really easy way to go ahead and meet internally, meet externally with our customers, share files, keep everybody's calendar up to date. And I think the integration between Teams and Office 365 and SharePoint for collaboration, organization, data transfer, and just kind of keep everybody on the same page is a really, really cool tool set. So there's a lot more to it than maybe just those 3 items from the Microsoft solution set. But if you haven't had a chance to check those out, I think they are really, really powerful, and it's worth looking into. Along those same lines, rather than sending emails, getting on web meetings, getting everybody into a conversation really goes a long way. Throw on the web camera, see everybody's faces, say hi to the people you haven't seen in a while, and I think that goes without saying. It's really nice to see people and kind of talk face to face, even if it's over a web meeting. So we've looked at licensing hardware, data, and collaboration, and really all 3 of these items, there are different SOLIDWORKS tool sets and solutions that are available to help you in these key areas. But sometimes it's not always about buying the latest piece of software, buying the latest piece of hardware. Sometimes it's about just sitting down and being a little bit more disciplined when you're working at home. And this is something that I've kind of found I needed to make adjustments on. And I think a lot of you guys probably have as well. And so I just want to talk about some of the things that I've found to be pretty useful when it comes to being disciplined and working at home. So when you're working at home, you've got to work with a purpose. You can't be like the guy you see here where everything's just a mess. You're not organized. You're not keeping track of things. That really starts to slow down the entire work process. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is Workspace. So I would recommend that you really focus initially on setting up the correct and really efficient workspace. Make sure that you've got plenty of room. Okay, if you have a small desk, buy a bigger one. Find a nice place to work. Make sure you've got enough room to spread out and stay organized, and make sure that it's somewhere that might be without distraction. Initially you might want to use what you've got available to you, whether that's the kitchen table or a coffee table, but you'll probably find that setting up a dedicated workspace is going to be a lot more effective. Okay, if you have the flexibility to do so, replicate your office setup. So if at work you've got a 32-inch monitor and you've got a 60-inch wide desk, you might find that replicating that setup at home is going to be really, really beneficial, especially if you find yourself going back and forth between the office and your house. That's kind of a scenario that I found myself in, where maybe I'd be in the office for a week or two, and then we'd have to start working from home again, or maybe it's going into the office 1 or 2 days a week and then working from home the rest of the time. Having a consistent setup really just lets me kind of work effectively regardless of where I'm at. One thing to also focus on is having a routine. This may just come down to your mindset and your personality, but for me personally, I just found that really having a routine when I'm working at home helps me stay efficient. So what I'm basically referring to here is, if you go into the office at 8 and you've got a 30-minute commute and you normally wake up at 6:45, then it's probably not a good idea when you work from home to wake up at 7:55 and then start working at 8. Don't give yourselves 5 minutes to kind of wake up and stumble over to your computer. Try to keep a consistent routine. Wake up at a certain time. Make your coffee, get ready, and try to be ready to start the day when you need to. Don't wake up at the last minute, roll out of bed, and think that you're going to perform at your top level with that kind of a routine. So prepare like you're going to the office, regardless of whether it's a home office or you're going to your physical workplace. And then try to work consistent hours. I think this was a big one for me, probably in both directions. When you think of working at home, you probably think, oh, well, I've got all day. I can maybe wake up a little late and, instead of 8 to 5, maybe I'll work 9 to 6. I've just found that keeping my work hours consistent is going to go a long way. And that goes in both directions. So not only starting my day later, but also ending my day on time. It's really easy when you're at home to not kind of have that visual cue of, maybe seeing other people walk out the door or saying goodbye to your office mates. So you might find yourself, instead of calling it a day at 5, all of a sudden you're working until 6 or 7, just because you didn't realize what time it was. And there's nothing wrong with necessarily working hard, but it's important to kind of have a nice home life balance. If you're working from home and you're working from sun up to sundown, that can pretty quickly turn your house into a place that maybe wasn't as comfortable or wasn't as much of a retreat as it was before you started working at home. Don't get distracted. This is a big one for me. I get easily distracted. I've got a ton of hobbies, and if I walk out into the garage and I see something I've been working on, there's a good chance I might stop and start doing something else that's not work related. So don't get distracted. If you've got screaming kids, if you've got a yappy dog, get a noise canceling headset. A lot of you parents out there, you found that both parents suddenly were working from home. You've got kids that you have to manage. That's tough. But try to minimize those distractions. Try to make it easier on yourself. If you can set up an isolated workspace, whether it's a spare bedroom or somewhere just away from all the distractions, I think you'll find that goes a long way as well. And that's pretty much what I do. I've got a spare bedroom that I've kind of converted into a home office. And to be honest with you, I don't leave it a ton. I kind of keep it like I would at the office, where I'm going to be in my office most of the day, and I'm going to work roughly until lunch. I'll go eat, I'll come back to the office, and then at 5 o'clock I'm going to leave. And so it kind of helps me isolate that home work scenario and really stay focused when I need to, and then be able to relax, once I'm done for the day and I'm ready to call it quits. All right, so discipline is just as important, if not more important, than some of the hardware and software that's available at your disposal. Well, I hope you guys found some new options for working at home more efficiently. We're always happy to discuss these with you guys, whether it's licensing hardware, whether it's data storage, data access, collaboration tools. We're always happy to sit down and talk with you guys about these different options. So if we need to sit down and talk about some of the different licensing tools and train you guys on how to use them, if we need to talk to IT about some of the best practices, whether it's hardware or data connectivity, we're always happy to help. So I would encourage you guys to reach out to us. If you have any of your own tips and tricks that you found to be helpful when working at home, you're more than welcome to share those as well. We're always looking for new and better ways to do things, and we'd love to share that with all of our other SOLIDWORKS users and customers.